Welcome back to Voidheart Studios, and as you can see, my hand has finally healed. And I am also going to be doing another nostalgia review today. And this one is going to be kind of a special one, kind of a funky one. I'm going to be talking about, like, what can be considered literally the most iconic Nerf blaster in the world. And that is the Nerf N-Strike Maverick REV6. The Maverick was released in 2005. That's also the year I came along. As part of the N-Strike series. And it is a 6-round, spring-powered, slide prime action revolver. Let's get into it. Up at the front, you have the muzzle. There's no N-Strike barrel lug. Those didn't come around until about a year later. Of course, back behind it, you have the cylinder, and behind the cylinder is a cylinder release button. You press this button, and the cylinder will swing out just a little bit. And that gives you access to the loading ports. You get access to about 2 loading ports at a time. That's where I thought I was going to sneeze. And this cylinder is a bit strange, like how little it swings out, because if I had my strong arm here with me, the strong arm cylinder and I believe even the Spectre cylinder swung out farther and gave you access to like 3 loading ports at once. So this one is only about 2 at once. But whatever, it was their first real try at a sidearm. Cannot blame them. Of course, up here is the priming handle, which also has the top tactical rail. This is an N-Strike tactical rail, so it will take N-Strike attachments. Sorta, having it on this priming handle makes it uncomfortable, especially if what you have on there is like a big optic or like a big sight or like one of the big Nerf scopes. Because then, like, you literally cannot prime the thing comfortably. I think what this was really... Sorry. I think what this was really meant for, judging by its release window and such, was to be able to mount it to the side of the Nerf Titan ASV-1, the big-ass rocket launcher that released a couple of years before this, to use it in the same way as you would use the Scout, to just prime off the side and do like that. I don't know, though. But of course, to prime the blaster, you pull back, and then you let go. It does have a spring return, and nothing rotates on the prime. The cylinder actually rotates on the trigger pull. And speaking of, we got the trigger. It's your typical old Nerf slide back trigger. And how it works is when you pull the trigger, the cylinder actually rotates into position, and then the blaster fires. And then completing the rotation, the cylinder rotates between the chamber you just fired and the next chamber. Which was kind of over-engineered. I mean, the Spectre, which literally released like a couple of years after the Maverick, just had the cylinder rotate on prime. And that was how it was up until the Strong Arm released, where the cylinder actually releases after the blaster fires. Or rotates, not releases. But this system, and this is the most, like, monkeyed and malarkeyed thing. The system does make inconsistencies and feeding errors. Only in the Maverick. There are quite a few, well, no, there's like 3. There are 3 revolvers that were released in the span of N-Strike that had the same rotation mechanism. Those were, of course, the Maverick in 2005, the Dart Tag Hyperfire in 2004, and the Dart Tag Fury Fire in 2007. The Fury Fire and Hyper Fire feed perfectly. The Maverick is the one. Oh, that's a good find. The Maverick is the one where if you pull the trigger too fast, there's about a solid 5 to 10% chance you'll jam the blaster. I don't know. I haven't had issues with my Mavericks. I haven't had many issues with my Mavericks jamming, but yeah. Of course, anyways. Down here we got the grip, which it's a really good grip, actually. I have big giant hands, and the nice individual finger choils and the really good distance between the back of the grip and the trigger just feels solid. And of course, this blaster has a singular lanyard mount, which actually allows you to attach the blaster to a sling and use it to prime the blaster for one-handed firing. Now, the cool thing about the Maverick is, due to, I'm sure, its pretty fast icon status, Hasbro looked back at it and just said, more. So, we got the N-Strike Era 2 Maverick in, I believe, 2008. Yeah. It would be 2008. Because I think the Recon was the first yellow N-Strike blaster. So the Recon or the Alpha Trooper, but yeah. We got the yellow N-Strike version, the Era 2, I call it, because the blue one was Era 1. And then we got the clear version in, I believe it was 2010? 2009 or 2010. We got the Clear Series variation. And then the Clear Series evolved to become the Sonic Series. And then we got this neon vomit colored translucent Maverick. And then, I sadly don't have these, but the Maverick also got variations in the Whiteout and Gear Up series of 2011. And finally, in 2013, they released a white version in Elite. This is the Elite Maverick, and it's got upgraded internals to boot. I will mention, or I'll discuss that later in the final thoughts segment when I look at chronograph results. But yeah, the Maverick was very iconic. A lot of people bought them, a lot of people played with them, a lot of kids, a lot of adults. You know, whether you were a kid who just loved terrorizing your siblings and parents with Nerf blasters, or you were a hobbyist who wanted a dedicated sidearm back before the strong arm was a thing, a lot of people went with the Maverick. And despite its reverse plunger internals, this thing actually has decent mod potential. There's the Night Mav mod, which involves putting Nightfinder internals within the Maverick to make it direct plunger with a direct prime, with a direct pullback prime. There is a mod where you cut the stopper to make the cylinder swing out more to give you access to more loading ports. And there is the one I've actually done to my Clear Maverick. As you can see, there is the ever so popular Maverick penny modification. And it was one of the first ever hobby instances of a spring spacer, which is just bunching something up behind the spring to give the spring pre-compression, which edges a little more power out of it. And hell, this might be a mod that people might eventually not be able to do anymore. I mean, with the penny now being discontinued from the US Mint. Anyways, sorry, got a little political there. But the Maverick is a very iconic blaster in not only the just consumer side of the hobby, but the modding side of the hobby and the hobby. And it's so iconic to where it's one of the first Nerf blasters people think about. You go to someone and say, think of a Nerf blaster, and aside from maybe their favorite blaster, a lot of times they'll think of the Maverick. Just because you see the Maverick everywhere. It's very iconic, it's very famous, and, well, I want to say it's because of a few things. Firstly, it's simple. Slide prime, 6-round revolver, very simple, easy to use, idiot-proof. Second of all, I mean, also partially in that functionality, it feels badass to use. I mean, just racking that slide, flipping out that cylinder to load, and then slamming it back home. It does bring great emotional response. Very fun, much excite. And also, it was cheap. I think it retailed for like $10. Which made it like the second cheapest blaster at the time, the cheapest being the Night Finder, which I think retailed for $5. But another interesting thing about this blaster is the darts. The darts that this blaster came with were these. These are called micro darts. Micro darts are what preceded the Elite Dart that took over in 2012 and that you saw up until a year ago whenever N-Series decided to show up. But this is the humble micro dart, and the micro dart had its problems. It had the same problems that Elite Darts had. They weren't very accurate, and well, they also had a unique problem of there were a lot of times that they just didn't like to seal properly. And people had their own solutions, putting electric tape on the inside of the barrels, or putting electrical tape all around the outside of the darts. But these were very unique. These ones have suction cup heads, so they will stick to things. Like, for example, I shouldn't have shot it from this close, but my monitor. This will probably stay there for the whole video. And these ones, which were called sonic darts. And these guys... Oh, never mind. I guess it didn't stick there for the whole thing. Whatever. These ones sometimes have a hard time doing it, but they were supposed to whistle. But then, come the next year, a lot of blasters would start coming with the clip system micro dart. This is what blasters like the Longshot and the Recon came with when the clip system started in 2006, because the new magazines that Nerf was making, these darts couldn't fit in because they, you know, they don't stack on top of each other without angling rearward weirdly because of how the heads are. And also just because, you know, they needed to make a new streamlined dart. And that's what the community actually calls those. They call them old streamlines. But, yeah. This is a very cool and a very simple blaster. And that's all I really have to say in terms of overview matters. Let's take it out to the range and fire it. Okay, I don't know who the hell pissed off Mother Nature today, but God, it's cloudy, it's cool, finally, and it is windy as all hell. But I'm still out here bringing y'all the content. Let's fire the Maverick.
We're going to start off with the original Midnight Blue Maverick. And I'm going to be loaded up with N-Strike Microsonic darts. These are the whistlers. I don't know if they're going to whistle today, but who knows. There we go. Oh, one more. One-handed. Wow. Okay. Whatever. Next up we've got the N-Strike Yellow Maverick with some X-Shot air pocket darts. Not bad. Now we've got the Sonic Series Maverick with some equally eye-melting green Dart Zone waffle darts. You gotta arc it sometimes on this thing. And there may be a headwind. Yeah. It's either a headwind or a crosswind, I can't recall. But finally, we've got the Elite Maverick, which does have upgraded internals to fit Elite spec. But I'm not sure we're going to have a much easier time hitting the target since I've got it loaded up with Nerf Elite darts. That's pretty swagadocious. I didn't bring my clear one out for the firing demo because the clear one is modified. I have done the very iconic Maverick Penny mod to it. So it is not going to be featured in this video for reason of authenticity. I wanted every blaster I shot in this video to be stock. I wanted... This one is stock, even though it does shoot harder than the other three because it is the Elite version. So, with that stated, let's go back inside. We'll talk about them before I get rained on. Hope it doesn't rain.
Alright, we are back inside with the Mavericks. Let's talk about them. Starting off with the chronograph results. I put both my yellow N-Strike Maverick as well as my white Elite Maverick up over my chronograph, and I achieved an average velocity of about 52 FPS with the N-Strike Maverick and about 66 FPS with the Elite Maverick. So yeah, the Elite Maverick does have upgraded internals. The highest shot I got with it I think was 73. And the lowest shot I got with it was 57. But of course the Elite Maverick is still reverse plunger, which does kind of suck, but whatever. All the Mavericks really hit the same FPS, except for, you know, the Elite one, and if you modify it to hit harder, obviously. But now let's talk about the Maverick. Obviously, it was a very, very iconic and influential blaster in the mid to late 2000s when it released, and even still today, people talk about the Maverick a decent amount when they're not talking about 3D printed blasters or N-Series sucking. But the Maverick does hold a very nice icon status. And what can you do to make a Maverick hit any sort of modern standard? Well, your best place already to use a Maverick is in Stock Wars or HVZ, and it's perfectly suitable for those. Now, if you want to make it hit a bit harder, then again, there's the penny mod or trying to find a similarly sized spring. Because of it being a reverse plunger and the restrictions of being able to fit around this, well, that probably wasn't a great way to show you, but with the restriction of having to be able to fit around this little cross piece in the back of the plunger tube, as well as fit within the shell, is a very tight restriction, and also fitting within the catch. So it is a very specific size of spring, but I'm sure it can be found, and I'm sure it has been found before. With a little digging, anything can be found, and anything can be done. Of course, if you can't find a spring, then pennies. I mean, literally, just pennies. Penny mod it. I've found no noticeable gains at less than 5 pennies, but 5 pennies is where I stopped. I might honestly take all of these Mavericks and just try to penny mod them more and see how much it takes to where the blaster won't be able to catch anymore. I kind of estimate that point being at about 8 or 9 pennies, but any little bit of power you can get is good. Also, removing the air restrictors and improving the air seal is a good thing. This blaster does not have a great seal. It doesn't have a rubber seal. It has a plastic piece that just kind of, well, you can see it even here. There's a little bit of a gap. It's a plastic piece that kind of exists against another plastic piece. And I know, I think there's some silicone there. No, that's dust. Never mind. I thrifted all of these, so if they're dusty or dirty or anything, that's the fault of the family that owns these blasters before I got my grubby little hands on them. Maybe they did have seals, and they've just worn out over the years, but they still have relatively competent performance for end strike. And of course, I would modify the cylinder stops to just be non-existent, so the cylinder can swing out as much as possible to allow for a better ease of loading. But now, of course, to that new segment, what would I change if I were in the shoes of the designers? The people who built these old blasters. What would I have done differently? Honestly, not much. The only thing I would do is I would either have it rotate on prime or rotate after firing. I mean, this is me with my modern knowledge of knowing the strong arm and the disruptor and the commander. They work better and they allow for slam fire as well, which is a thing that the Maverick never got. And so I would say, you know, either I would rework that mechanic. Even though there is a decent amount of dead space between the barrels, I wouldn't change it because not only is 6 just a solid capacity for a sidearm, it's an iconic capacity for a revolver. It's a 6-shooter. I mean, 6-round revolvers have been the thing for years. I mean, even when, you know, the cowboys of the old American West would use them as their sidearms. They often had 6-round revolvers, with the higher capacity being reserved for rifles and, you know, the oldest machine guns. I would keep the capacity the same because, again, it's a sidearm. You don't need, like, you don't need a pistol with a friggin' 30-round drum mag or whatever. But, yeah. That's really all I would change about the Maverick. And, of course, I would make a direct plunger, because reverse plunger just sucks. And Hasbro eventually realized that it sucks, and they moved on whenever they started making Elite blasters to using entirely, completely direct plunger. So, yeah. In terms of my personal opinion of the Maverick, I really like it. It's a very fun blaster to plink with. It's a very fun blaster to play with. I also do just find a great deal of enjoyment in old blasters. And I don't know. It's just fun. It's a very fun blaster. If you find one at Goodwill, I'd pick it up. It'll be a nice little plinker, and even if you want to use it at a stock war or an HVZ, I mean, there's a rare chance it'll let you down. But, yeah, I think I have blathered on enough. This video about a 6-round pistol is probably going to be over 20 minutes long, and I am going to question my own sanity for it. But, yeah, I really hope you did enjoy this video. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, do the algorithm nonsense, how YouTube works and whatever, all that jazz. And comment your favorite version of the Maverick. My personal favorite